morning. What a beautiful day, isn't it? We had a few days of rain, and now on the Buddha's birthday, celebrating the Buddha's birthday, the sun came out, and you came out, so you brought the sun with you, and you're all here. And I'm just going to sit because, one thing about Buddhism is we're all equal, right? We are all the Buddha, and we all take on different roles. And so I always feel funny kind of just standing because, there's no reason I should stand and you should sit. If we're going to sit, we should all sit or we should all stand, and I don't think you want to stand. So, and I want to thank, the gathering for giving me this opportunity, and Joanne, and when we were singing that song, Imagine, I was thinking, we could just sing that song for 20 minutes. I think if we, every time I sing that song, it brings tears to my eyes because, it really kind of says, everything, that I feel when John Lennon wrote the words to that song, he was definitely inspired, and that was one of his, lasting gifts, to mankind, quite frankly, that we could somehow always have that reminder, to imagine, imagine, the impossible. Imagine, everything that we think is impossible for our lives, for our society, and forget that it's impossible. Find a way. I didn't really mean to talk about John Lennon, but one thing he said, okay, well the '60s failed. Flower power failed. So are we going to go back and give up, or are we going to try again? Find a different way. And it kind of fits right in with what I'm planning to talk about today, which is about vows that people make and how that vow transforms, their lives. And a long time ago, really a long, long time ago, in the snowy mountains someplace, was this young man named Sessun Doji. And he decided that he wanted to awake from this dream of the transient world and to seek the reality of enlightenment, and then to be able to teach other people what he was awakened to so he could end all suffering. So he left, society, and he goes into these mountains where he's living, and, he's deep in meditation, kind of like the meditation we just did. And this is what he's doing. He's meditating day after day after day, month after month after month, and he's not getting anywhere, right? He hasn't been awakened, and he's, quite frankly, getting a little discouraged. But, he made this vow, so he keeps on going, keeps on trying. And one day, he's walking down the snowy path in the trees, and he hears this phrase he hears from a distance that says, "All is changeable, nothing is constant. This is the law of birth and death." And he's kind of, oh, wow, but there must be more. Like, what's the next part? But there's nothing else coming. A few minutes go by, and he hears the same thing again, but never the second part. So he's getting kind of anxious, and he starts walking to see who could be saying this, because there's nobody living here, even very few animals, right? And he keeps on walking, and kind of lying down in the bushes is this demon, this huge, big, demon. And he says, all is changeable, nothing is constant. This is the law of birth and death. And Sessun Doji says to him, "Oh, is this you who's saying that, a demon?" And, he says that, okay, so he says that, even though you're a demon, the words you're saying are as if they are from the Buddha. But there must be more. Tell me more. And the demon says, "I can't." And so Sessun Doji says, "Why not?" And the demon says, "Well, I haven't eaten for a few weeks, and I'm really hungry, and I'm really weak and tired. And I just couldn't really utter another word." So Sessun Doji says to him, "Well, tell me what you eat, and I'll go get you food. And in exchange, I'll feed you, and then you teach me the rest of this verse." And the demon says, "Well, I can't really tell you what I eat." And Sessun Doji says, "Why?" And the demon says, "Well, because you'll get scared and run away." And Sessen Doji says, well, no, I won't. So the demon says, well, I eat human flesh. It's the only thing I can eat. And so Sessen Doji says, oh. It's kind of not really what he was expecting. And he said, he pondered for a minute and he thought, well, I rejoice at hearing this verse, which is no different from the teaching of the Buddha, so I must be willing to sacrifice my life. So he says to the demon, well, if you teach me the verse, I'll offer you my life and you could eat me as your meal. And the demon says to him, well, how do I know that? How do I know that once I teach it to you, you're just going to go running away, and I'm so weak that I would never be able to catch you? And Sessen Doji says to him, well, I promise. And the demon says, well, who's going to vouch for your honesty? How do I know you're an honest kind of guy? And he says, well, there are those who will vouch for my honesty. Like the Buddhas of ages past, I call upon the great heavenly king Brahma, the heavenly lord Chakra, the gods of the sun and the moon, and the 4 heavenly kings to be my witness. So the demon says, okay, that sounds pretty good. So the demon teaches him the next part of the verse, which is extinguishing the cycle of birth and death, one enters the joy of nirvana. So Sessen Doji is all excited, and he gets up and he starts running around inscribing this phrase on the trees. He writes it on rocks, on the side of the mountains, because he knows once he gives his life to the demon, he wants other people who follow after him to be able to more easily see this enlightened phrase. So he does that for a while, and he comes back, and he says to the demon, okay, now I'm ready. And the demon says, okay, well, I'm going to go to the bottom of the cliff and jump off, and I'll eat you. Right? So Sessen Doji goes to the top of the cliff and jumps off, and just as he's about to enter the demon's open mouth, the demon turns into the god Taishaku, the Buddhist god Taishaku, and he catches